And welcome to another edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right, man. Rather depressing weekend, man. A lot of injuries, fantasy football. Boys were already giving me stuff before, J.K. Dobbins, man. Join Aaron Rodgers and just join retirement, man. That's all I'll say. I think it's time to hang him up. You know that contract is not coming your way after brutal knee injuries and now arguably an even worse injury in an Achilles. He's still young. He could obviously come back, but, putting him at the top 15, even top 25 caliber of running back at this point is just, futile. Bears, unfortunately, taking the L, man. Just Zoo. He already let me hear it. It's all good. Just week one, but it looked bad. So I'm not excited right now. I would like to see if they're able to make some adjustments, kind of clean up their game a little bit. But I ain't expecting nothing this year, man. That's all I'll say. That defense is porous at best.
Yeah, all I gotta say to Bear fans is let's root for those losses right now, man. Go for Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
that's all I gotta say, man. That's all I gotta say, man.
I'd rather Marvin.
Enticing.
Man, stop. You want a franchise-chasing quarterback, once in a lifetime guy, man. You get a guy in Caleb Williams. It doesn't matter how bad your franchise is. You're gonna be winning games with a guy like that. Because I saw some college football. Oh, that brother looks like the second coming of Mahomes, even though play style is so similar. So I'm telling you, all these bad teams that have losses right now and might be losing lots of games, just have some hopes for next year, because next year's draft could save some franchises from mediocrity. Because what the Bears look like, mediocre, man. Because that Packers team, which I thought was gonna be an average level team this year, made the Bears look like outclassed
They got out coached at every level. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that game was. I was expecting a lot closer game, but obviously got their butt whooped, man. But football season has started. My fantasy team's 4-1. Beautiful start, 4-1.
There you go, man.
Yeah, like it's good to see some W's in the first weeks, but my oh my, the injuries, man. It's a long season, God. But then the injuries are already here, and they are so brutal. Because last night's game, man, got me a little sad, even though I thought the game was gonna be super boring afterwards, but it's probably one of the best games of the weekend.
That might be a top.
That game was even the ending.
That was a great game.
Everything about the ending, it was drama, and the way it ended was like a nice little movie ending right there with the what's it called?
Hard Knocks guy.
With the Hard Knocks guy.
Yeah,
they got the contract to win the game. So like, ended like a little sweet, but it got the Jets fans something to celebrate about. But then you drive back home, you're like, shoot, Zach Wilson,
once reality sets in,
because Jesus Christ, Zach Wilson, man, they had bubble wrap on their offense when he was in. So that's all I gotta say.
Hey, I think Zach Wilson. Well, I'll put it this way. His biggest supporters were excited that they got the win last night. But I will say, once reality sets in, it's going to be tough for even the strongest Jets fan to be like, oh, listen, we're fine. The division is still, everything's right in front of us. I think you say those things like just as a fan, but in reality, it's going to be a tough road for the New York Jets. So, what we were referring to was the unfortunate, I wouldn't even say unfortunate, just devastating play that I saw with Aaron Rodgers. Like, in all transparency, when I first saw it, I was thinking, like, man, I think it's just like he stepped wrong and it was like a Liz Frank or something. And maybe it's like he's gone half the season and he'll be back maybe for like, if they can, tread water, they'll be back for the, middle of the season and for a playoff push. But once I like started seeing the Twitter doctors do like the zoom in and you saw the back of his leg, I was like, yeah, that's an Achilles. That's an Achilles. And I was like, God. So then, like Zoo pointed out, they were able to salvage the game. So I wanted to ask the guys their opinion on just the whole Aaron Rodgers injury and, what's the future future plans of the New York Jets. People, I want to start with you.
Man, I mean, they're kind of back to square one. I mean, it's not like that Rodgers was going to cure them all, right? All the issues and take this team to a Super Bowl in his first year. Was it possible? Absolutely. Garrett Wilson coming into his second year, Breece Hall coming back, at least going into week 1, we thought he was relatively healthy. After week 1, he looks pretty damn good after that nice long run that he had. 10 for 127, obviously the bulk of it coming on that one play. But man, he looked pretty explosive. Maybe still getting his steps underneath him. Maybe he could gain a mile per hour or two towards the end of the year once he gets a couple more games under his belt. But man, I think you're going to see this become a heavily rush attack offense. There's really nothing to say about the defense. They dominated Josh Allen. I mean, they really did. Stephon Diggs really made some pretty clutch plays with one of the best corners in the league in Sauce Gardner on him. They were still throwing in the ball. Hey, shout out Bears. When your best receiver is being covered, you can still throw him the ball. He might actually catch it. A lot of teams could take a little number from that. But sometimes you just got to force it to the guy that can make plays. I thought Dalton Kincaid for the Bills as well looked pretty good. So just kind of looking at this Bills team, even though they did take the loss against the Jets in the week 1, I just don't see the Jets competing with them throughout the rest of the season with Zach Wilson at the helm. Maybe Rodgers just being there will help Wilson progress in his career, but is that going to happen at the snap of the fingers? I just don't see it, man. I think the Dolphins are just way too explosive in that division. Hell, the Patriots even looked pretty damn good against the reigning runner-ups, I should say, in Philadelphia Eagles. And then obviously we got the Bills there. So Bills weren't impressive, but I just think that this loss for the Jets is really just putting them at least in that 3rd slot in the AFC, potentially even 4th if they can't really get behind Zach Wilson and get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, man. Not gonna lie, watching this game, it's just the biggest what if right now. Because you're looking at what that team had. We saw a little of everything when Rodgers wasn't playing. That defense, 3 picks.
Defense
that one
is
guy,
really good.
Holy cow! Because
really
like Josh Allen in this offense, like they got you mentioned Dalton Kincaid. This guy's a 1st-round pick, and they're highly utilizing this guy. Like they're rubbing Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid on offense. Obviously, Gabe Davis did his little spring routes, man. But Stephon Diggs show, Jesus Christ, that offense is fully loaded, and they made them look mediocre until the last drive that forced overtime when they were cutting up. Was pretty much it was just Josh Allen to Diggs every single time, and they couldn't stop him. But the majority of the game, I was just like, Josh Allen was forcing things, and like he just like. Sometimes the decision making with Josh Allen, sometimes you think a little like, man, he's been in the league for a while now. He's still making some really suspect decisions. I remember that one deep pass downfield. I'm just like, what are you doing? Just no one's down there. And obviously he's trying to force some stuff against this elite defense. But my God, the secondary is good. Yeah. My goodness. Like watching them, like, the way they were talking hard, I'm like, my goodness, they were going to live up to the hype on their defense, especially against this Bills offense. It was like the perfect test for them to initially start out against an elite offense. And we got a quick taste about that. And I was just like, Jesus Christ. And on offense, Breece Hall, nickname for Breece Hall is Breece Hall of Fame, man. Because this guy's unbelievable. This guy's off a torn ACL, and his first 2 runs gets him 100 yards. It gave me like it sort of reminded me of Nick Chubb when he was like barely running, and the dude just runs you like 2 carries for 100 yards. Like he gave me that kind of vibe of his efficiency of him running, because he doesn't need many carries to get 100 yards. Like his
shut up the offensive line too. The Bills front is no joke.
Yeah. So I'm like, Breece Hall running, like he would have got that touchdown, that 180-yard touchdown, but it looked like he ran out of gas a little. And Garrett Wilson did a little pre-celebration, should have done some blocking.
Little Nick Young.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. He was like, I was like, yo, dude, block that one dude, and Breece Hall gets a touchdown.
Then he tried to reach out at the last minute.
Yeah, he did. So I'm not gonna lie, I love Garrett Wilson, but I'm blaming that brother for a little pre-early celebration on that. So Breece Hall could have got close to 100-yard tutty. So I'm like, Breece Hall is unbelievable. Dalvin Cook, he looked, not gonna lie, he looked a little washed, but Breece Hall is the dude, and obviously Garrett Wilson. You saw that touchdown that Zach Wilson didn't throw that touchdown. That was just Garrett Wilson catching that. Yeah. Whatever. That was just Zach Wilson. They're just praying that he gets it done. But we saw all the weapons. We saw all the weapons on offense and defense, man. It's just such a shame that Aaron Rodgers. It just looks like
you know what they're praying for, Zoo?
What?
You know what they're praying for right now? They're praying for a Jacksonville Jaguars 2017 season right here. Defense carries. somehow Blake Bortles gets
No,
into the AFC
no.
Championship game.
I'm sorry,
That's what
but
they're
Blake.
praying
I'm
for.
sorry, but Blake Bortles is way better than Zach Wilson, man. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry, man. Every time I see Zach Wilson make a decision, stupid. Just a little kid out there, man. That one pick was awful.
Yeah.
That was awful, man. He just looked scared.
He
He
got
looked
thrown in, man.
scared.
Think about all the hype.
He probably didn't think he was playing at all.
No chance.
I don't
His
care.
mind was not on the game, probably.
Man, I don't want to make this comparison, but I saw Brock Purdy coming for the Niners and ball out, man. That's all I gotta say. And Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft, and obviously everyone knows that Brock Purdy is better. Okay, but there's expectations now, and I saw him go against the Steelers and light them up,
That's a good
and
point.
look
He lit them up.
Oh, he lit them up, and he looked just like he coming from first game back from injury, looked locked and loaded. And this guy's the number 2 overall pick, got mentored by Aaron Rodgers, and he still looked like trash, man. That's all I gotta say. I gave him a second chance, make a second game. They do offensive scheme up with the coach, Nathaniel Hackett, that clown. Let's see it against Zach Wilson. Okay. You look a little good with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, let's see you do some.
Let's see how good he earn your paycheck, Nathaniel.
Where you got a guy that they're scared to throw 10 feet down the field. Like they actually look scared to throw the football. He did not look like a quarterback. I'm telling you, they had more confidence in Mike White throwing the football down the field.
Mike White just let it go, man.
Compared to Zach Wilson, it looked like scared football. I was just like, Jesus.
So
Christ.
So as the Jet, if you're the Jets and
you're looking for a veteran quarterback,
playbook, you're like
Tom Brady.
if you have to scale your playbook down. I mean, if you have to do all that just to prevent Zach Williams from making a bunch of mistakes, you might as well go get a proven guy. Yeah. And like you said, people just said Tom Brady. I mean, I doubt he does that, but I don't know who's out there who I would be chomping to the bit to go get that's like not on the team.
Not many guys.
For me, I think the funniest thing would be like, I think Cam's personality is too big because I think they want Zach Wilson to. I don't know if you bring Cam Newton in, he's going to be the starter, but it's like I don't know how much better right now Cam Newton is than Zach Wilson. Like obviously he's probably better, but it's like, is it? You could just keep Zach Wilson. Like I don't know a backup that makes sense for them unless you get a quarterback off the street. Which to me, I would just rather coach Zach Wilson than not make mistakes, and hopefully he doesn't lose this again. Because I'm not going to go get a veteran guy who's maybe going to take more chances, and he just doesn't have it anymore. Which puts the Jets in just a really, really, really unfortunate situation. Because not only are they done for this year in terms of quarterback play and their team, like next year you got to have a tough decision of like, all right, well, if Aaron Rodgers comes back and he's off the Achilles and he's 40, like. God, it's like, do you start preparing yourself for like maybe we should draft a quarterback or maybe we should trade for one? Like, I don't know, man. I think if I was the GM, I would be like, look, I'm paying Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, all this money. Coach Zach Wilson to be Joe Flacco. Don't screw it up. You got all these weapons. Hand it off to Breeze. Maybe Cook returns the form. Key in on Garrett Wilson. Be creative with him. Maybe have him, motioning more. I don't know, things to make it easier for him. Because the downfield passing game is pretty much non-existent. You can't even think of a game plan where he's throwing the ball down the field unless he just all of a sudden from week 1 to 2 becomes this all-time quarterback, which he's not. So to me, you're going to have to limit the playbook. And I will give the Jets credit. I don't know who the guy that was talking crap last week about the Bears, 85 Bears, but they look good. And Josh Allen, he's sporadic. He's sporadic. Yeah, the Reed guy. He's sporadic, but he's a top-tier quarterback. So for them to make him look that way, then I do have faith the defense might be able to do that 14 out of the 17 weeks. So
they'll keep him in most games. Let's be honest. Like I know they were at home too. They had all the hype, but to come out and still play hard after witnessing your savior go down in the 4th play of the game. That's a mental toughness. I credit Saleh for talking about at halftime, whatever it was, whether he got these two guys together. And to be honest, I know Zach Wilson didn't have a great game. I think he had like 170 and a touchdown and a pick or whatever. The Bills secondary is no joke either. We were talking about this last week. They're not a joke.
Yeah, they're 2 corners.
And you were walking into arguably the highest expectations for a Jets team in recent history, probably in the last 2 decades. And I don't know. I'm willing to give him
He
another
just
shot.
needs to
See
be
how he
average.
goes.
He just needs to be average
Jimmy
and limit
G.
mistakes. That's
Jimmy
it.
G. That's all he
Just
needs to be.
Jimmy G, maybe a tier below Jimmy G. Like if he's
Sure.
a tier below Jimmy G, they'll definitely make the
If
playoffs. But if he's
Trubisky can
running
take a
around
team to the
ripping passes
playoffs,
and stuff,
Zach Wilson. on,
if he could do it,
Because you got to
Zach
remember,
can do it.
I think you could argue that defense of the Bears in 2018 was one of the best single season defenses in the last 10 years. And if the Jets can do the same thing on defense this year, the Bears won 12-4 that year. I'm not saying that the Jets are going to go 12-4. Obviously, you can't anymore, but they could stay relevant. They could definitely stay relevant.
But you know what
They'll make
Trubisky's
it,
better at?
interesting.
Zach Wilson at playing football. He's better than Zach Wilson. And you know me, I think Mitchell Trubisky's one of the biggest busts of all time. But he's better than Zach Wilson at football.
Yeah.
So he's just such a limited player.
Yeah.
He's small. He runs around in this little scramble. He's running backwards, man, for his life. I was like, some of the run backwards, man. I was just like, oh my goodness, man. Look at
he's gonna have to change his entire game, man.
Look at Johnny Manziel running for his life, man. That's what it looked like in some of those running backwards play. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, it is freestyle right now. Like, this is ugly.
That's what they're gonna have to do, though. They're gonna have to freestyle to keep the season afloat. The only positive here, though, isn't the trade picks that the Jets gave the Packers based on how
they don't owe it.
Rodgers
Yeah, they won't
played.
owe it.
Yeah, I'll be turning a second rounder now.
Yes, they don't owe the
Good.
first round.
Packers lose out on a first rounder. Thank God. Thank
Well,
God.
you know what's hilarious? They'll probably just take another stud receiver in the second round because that's just usually when they
exactly.
take their stud receivers, or in the third or fourth.
They'll
So
trade up
this
and
is
take
kinda what the
Marvin
Packers
Harrison
did.
Jr.
Maybe. But speaking of, I think Jets fans would be looking at this podcast and maybe would think we're overreacting. But with week one, that's what happens. And, it was a lot of storylines that came up. I know last night kind of, dominated a lot of the coverage. But, Sunday was full of a lot of, scores that were what we expected and some scores that, was a little surprising. So I wanted to ask the guys from their perspective, what was their biggest takeaway, an overreaction from week one. And Zoo, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor on this one.
My, oh my. I got to look at the gambler. I'm looking at the gambler, Calvin Ridley. Man, watching that game was really, really interesting because I'm really high on the Jags this year and seeing that offense. And I told you about the young quarterback with the wide receiver one and see the ascension. What I've seen from Trevor Lawrence that game, he made some that really bad pick. I was like, okay, he ain't that tier yet. Like, so you can't be making decisions like that. And obviously against a Indianapolis Colts team that is not meant to do much this year. Not a good defense. Obviously, a rookie quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks struggle to win games, especially their first game. But Anthony Richardson did not look like a rookie.
No, he looked pretty good.
He looked awesome. Like, I thought he's going to be one of those, like, project players. That maybe it could take a couple games to get like, even, like, decent. But he looking like he might already be average, man.
Yeah.
Like, he already looking like he might be average because pretty much what they said of him off season. Like, this guy, like, he's diligent. He's got all the intangibles, man. All hard worker in the gym, like absorbing the playbook and doing all that. And that release, it's looking kind of nice. Just based on the eye test, like some of those, like, and that hit a nice little dime to Pittman, man. So building that connection to this wide receiver one, Michael Pittman. He got a nice little touchdown run. Shout out to Michael Pittman. But Anthony Richardson looks like a freak when he runs too. Like, he already had 10 carries, even though some of the hits he's taking, like, can't be taking all those hits. That last hit that he took, they had to like leave the game and I had to put in Minshew for the one last play, even though game was already over. So that was just like, there's no reason for that at all. Like, I appreciate the aggressiveness, but no need to take hits like that, even though you might be built like Derrick Henry. Like, taking those hits in NFL is going to linger on you. But my goodness, he's the best rusher on the team by far already. You saw Deion Jackson try to run the football. Absolute disgrace, man. 13 carries for 14 yards, man. That is disgraceful. So
it's worse than AJ Dillon.
Dude, that is awful. That is awful. I am actually shocked they didn't like try like a couple more guys like Jake Funk, Evan Hall. They got 2 carries, 1 carry.
They need Zach Moss,
like,
if they really want to do something.
Yeah, I think is he injured?
He missed the last game. I think with a hamstring.
Yeah. Okay. Jesus.
Just like everyone else.
But I'm just like, man, I'm just thinking if Jonathan Taylor comes back for this offense and have that dual running attack, that having the running quarterback creates the opening for a real RB1 and Jonathan Taylor, okay, that could be a nice little office right there. But Anthony Richardson, like he 24 for 37.
Not
Okay,
bad.
that's
Yeah.
not bad. Like he had a touchdown. He had one interception that he forced it down the field. Okay, okay, it happens, man. Like the QBR doesn't look that pretty. But from what I've seen from a rookie for his first game against a team that was in the playoffs, I am extremely impressed with Anthony Richardson's progress as a rookie quarterback. Because rookies like even like all these franchise quarterbacks, like outside of like Justin Herbert, who started off real hot. Like most of these guys took like an entire year off, but this guy is getting put in day one against a Jaguars team that has very high expectations. And you're playing against Trevor Lawrence and a guy, he got ETN who had ETN looking real nice too. Man, that nice run, that nice little cut with the contact average. So him, the T-Law, Travis Etienne combo is still there. And Calvin Ridley, the gambler, taking pretty much 2 years off and just coming in and making the NFL look like it's nothing, man. He took 2 years off and came in and he looked like an absolute stud. Like you go from Christian Kirk to Calvin Ridley. And with Calvin Ridley's arrival, I forgot Christian Kirk was on the team.
You know who might take over the number 2 slot though? Zay Jones.
Zay
man.
Jones,
he's looking real nice.
Like Zay Jones number 2 right
nice
now.
Touchdown
Kirk's
catch.
like the number 3 guy, or maybe number 4 because Evan Ingram is up there too.
Yeah, true.
So they got some weapons over there in the Jaguars, and I have very high expectations. I have them win maybe 10, 11 games this year. So I am very, very impressed by this. So this game showed me a lot of both sides.
Yeah,
especially
both sides.
Got my confirmation bias in Calvin Ridley. That got that out of the way. And I was very intrigued by Anthony Richardson as a late round pick this year. And this guy's already producing week 1, which I'm like, okay, I'm producing week 1 already. I'm impressed.
Well, I agree. And shout out you, Sean. I think you were the first guy on this podcast to bring up Anthony Richardson as being kind of a guy to eye when he was still playing in Florida.
He's got
He's
those
just
tools.
dynamic, kind of that Justin Fields. To your point, Zoo, about him and Jonathan Taylor. I'm not saying that the Bears had a running back like that, but that's what opened up for Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery last year was just the threat of Justin Fields running, right? So I can't even imagine when you put a true RB1 back there in Jonathan Taylor, if and when that happens, that they could have a decent rushing attack. For a young team, that's what you need to just kind of start the slate clean. So I'm actually going to look at another game, and I wouldn't say that it's as much on both sides, but I guess you could consider one, and that's the Bucs-Vikings game. Not
Baker.
very impressive. Baker looked okay. He was fine.
He did.
He had a
He
pretty
started
good
off
game.
awful though.
He started off
bounced
awful,
back,
but he bounced back. Mike Evans, another confirmation. Zoo is still. I know he had that one drop on a potential touchdown. I think it was on a slant.
Yeah,
a
he
deep slant route. Should have had 2, but still he was still getting open as usual in the end zone. Mike Evans, man, he lives there. Has for nearly 10 years now, if not more than 10 years. I think this might be his 10th season.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of confirmation for me. I thought Rachaad White, they use him a decent amount. I was pretty high on Rachaad White this year. Unfortunately, just didn't fall to me at an optimal position in fantasy drafts. But more so, I'm a little concerned for the Vikings, man. I'm not concerned about Justin Jefferson. We all know what he's going to do. I was very impressed with Jordan Addison, even being an undersized wide receiver. He is a guy that I'm very high on this year. I tried to get as much stock as I could in this dude as being a kind of a bench guy, potentially using as a flex position as the year progresses. Was very impressed with him. But, man, Kirk Cousins in his decision-making, man, will always and continue to be the downfall of the Minnesota Vikings.
Man.
That pick was horrible. I think he had 2 fumbles as well, if I remember. I know they forced some fumbles on him as well in that game.
Yeah.
2 fumble lost.
2 fumbles lost, an interception. That's 3 turnovers. And now, granted, they still only lost by 3 points. We know how the Vikings were last year, winning all their close games. You really got to clean that up. And I'm not saying that, once again, this is definitely an overreaction. But you're looking at the NFC North. The Packers looked pretty good, granted, against the Bears, whatever. The Lions took down the Chiefs, obviously without Travis Kelce. Maybe we'll get to that here in a minute. But, man, I'm just looking that this is not going to be a cakewalk for the Vikings to win the division for the first time in a while. And you really got to clean up your act, especially getting the running game going. They couldn't get Alexander Madison going whatsoever. I think he was averaging about 3 yards a carry.
He got a lot of carries, didn't he?
He had like 11 carries for like 35 yards or something like that. He did score. But that O-line is concerning because you can put as much blame on Kirk Cousins as you want, but he's only getting forced fumbles if there are guys getting through, pressuring him into making rash decisions, right? He's not just chucking it up with a perfect pocket. He's smarter than that. So it's just a couple things that are just iffy. And the fact that, come on, man, not that 20 points is a ton to give up, but it's the Buccaneers. And there's another division. The Saints just outplayed the Titans just enough to win. It's going to kind of come down to them and the Bucks this year. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Just because the Bucks, they do have a lot of talent on their offensive side. I don't think anybody can deny that. It was whether or not they could actually get the ball without getting picked off.
To those guys, yeah.
AKA Baker Mayfield, right? So if Baker Mayfield can just kind of, to what you were saying, Zoo and Sean, be mediocre. Don't turn the ball over. Throw 200 yards a game and a touchdown, and we should be fine because their defense is something to be reckoned with. So not too much overreacting on the Vikings. I think it is an overreaction to really say that they're in trouble, but I really think they got to clean up that O-line over the next year or two because Kirk Cousins is going to be gone sooner rather than later, and they're going to be trying to find their next quarterback, and that's not an in-between time that you want to be dwelling on for too long.
I just thought, like, and I'm a big Kirk Cousins defender, and that's just because I watched QB1.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're in a Vikings front office and you're just, like, fiddling around on, the office desk and going through, like, prospects and stuff, it's like, what if they're just like, because this year in the quarterback draft realm, like Caleb Williams, Drake May, like Michael Penix, Jordan Travis is another guy. They got at least 4 or 5 guys that are like, in that they could maybe, if they all play well, like there's a top 2, but there's guys that are behind them. They're like, okay, they're nice projects if they get with the right team. It's like, I know that they took the Tennessee quarterback Hooker, and he's kind of, I think, a real long-term project because he tore his ACL kind of towards the end of the season, and he's going to have to rehab from that. So I'm just wondering, like, if the Vikings start to your point, fade because of their offensive line problems, like maybe they start positioning themselves to get like a quarterback, or they can maybe make a trade for a guy that's injured in Arizona. I don't know. Maybe, because I think Arizona's going to probably try to
that
tank.
would be nasty.
And if they got Kyler, yeah. If they got Kyler, I don't know what the trade deadline is in the NFL, but if they were able to swing Kyler, that could be very interesting because Kyler, like you just said, Kyler with that offense would be sick. They would be sick. And then, maybe the next year try to invest into a real running back 1. And it's early. Alexander Madison might be that guy, but still, they can maybe invest in a running back 1 next year. But for me, it's more so around previous Super Bowl type teams with KC and the Bengals. And I kind of got another statement after that. Out of those two with the Bengals and Chiefs, on one hand, you can say, oh, well, the Bengals, they play in a monsoon. So, like, throw everything out. And then on the Chiefs side, you'd be like, look, we didn't have Kelsey. To me, I'm more concerned with the Bengals just because, to your point about the Vikings, like, I don't think their O-line's really good. I don't. Like, I think they got Brown, I think, in free agency.
Orlando Brown, yeah.
But I think overall, they're straight. Like, I think Burrow's decision-making is so good is that he's able to get the ball out quick and he has elite weapons. So I think you can still kind of mask their O-line. I truly do think with the Chiefs, they're so Kelsey dependent that when Kelsey comes back, their receivers now, I wouldn't throw the ball to Kadarius Toney anymore.
Jesus.
I wouldn't throw it to him anymore.
That brother cost me $50, man. I'll never forgive him, man. The dude got so shamed that he deleted his Twitter account because he's getting so much.
Yeah,
hate.
he's awful. He's getting destroyed. No, but he had a really bad game, so I get it. But I do think when Kelsey comes back, the Chiefs receivers are going to be even more open and play better, and they have a few more options. Like, I still think if Justin Ross can ever get to the next gear, and I think he'll benefit from Kelsey being there, maybe he could be a guy that down the road could be good for the Chiefs. But going from the Chiefs and Bengals to the Bengals and Browns, I'm interested with two. I saw 2 things Sunday that were interesting to me. Maybe I slept on the Browns defense. I know Myles Garrett played for them. I know that. But like, maybe I slept on like just how disruptive they are. And I do think that their weapons, and I know, again, it was a monsoon, but I do think their weapons with more Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think he's going to make a big impact this year, and having Amari Cooper, I think they could potentially have a really good offense. And to me, I'm starting to wonder, like, if the Browns beat the Steelers next week, What about the Browns winning that division? Why can't they win that division? Because as much as we talk about that, it was a monsoon with that game. Deshaun outplayed Burrow. Like, he just outplayed him. Deshaun had one really bad interception, which I don't even know why he threw it because it's a flag. Like, it was a weird interception. But, like, just him. The thing about Deshaun is he's a good quarterback. Like, a lot of people don't think he's maybe an elite tier, but he's a steady force on the field. He just knows how to play the position well. And and kind of like how we want Zach Wilson to play, how Deshaun is playing right now, Zach should play like how he played in that game Sunday. Be steady. He made a mistake. Run the ball. Do whatever you got to do with Chubb. Like you said, they both got two good running backs. You got weapons on the outside. Just play your game. Don't play outside yourself. And I think Deshaun did that very well. And if they beat the Steelers next week, they're in control of that division. Because now you got to think to yourself, like,
Lamar didn't look great.
The Bengals going to be.
I agree.
I forgot that he had one interception. I know it's the Houston Texans. D'Amico Ryans, defensive coordinator, whatever. But still, it's the Texans. Come on, C.J. Stroud, Damian Pierce. You gotta bury them way more than what you did. The Ravens did. He didn't look great, and I think a lot of people were trying to say him and I think Burrow, they didn't play in the preseason.
I'm telling you, man,
they know how to play. They know how to play.
I'm telling you, both those guys got paid these unreal contracts. Didn't show up day one, man. Lamar and Joe Burrow, both those guys.
The money hangover, Zoo.
Dude,
yeah,
it definitely is, man.
Seriously.
Because that's your only excuse. Because from your performances, I had expectations against the Texans.
Yeah.
About what, Ben? Because of you, not because of the other players. Because of you.
Yeah.
Lamar was trash. Joe Burrows was trash, but just week one. So
I don't know. It is. So I'm just the AFC North, Pittsburgh. They're probably out of all these overreactions. I never overreacted them because I feel like they just always figure it out and bounce back. But I am going to be interested to see how the Bengals are able to maneuver because I think if the Browns get this second division game and they start off 2-0, then I think the confidence is going to grow with them. Like, it's house money now. Like, we're up 2-0 to the division. We're 2-0 overall. Like,
especially
Nick Chubb's a monster.
The Bengals was huge. I mean,
their offensive line, like I know one of their tackles I think got injured, but they have another guy, DeJuan Jones, who was like I think he might have been a 5th or 6th round pick, and it was all because they thought he wasn't passionate about football, and they were like he's a basketball guy. But during preseason, he looked really, really good. So if they're able to just substitute him in, I don't know what side he's going to be on, left or right, but if they're just able to substitute him in and he's able to hold his own, they could get that division. Because like I've been saying, I know Deshaun had a really bad year last year, but he was freaking sitting on his ass for 2 years. Like, he just didn't have reps. And when he came in Sunday, that's why Cleveland did that guaranteed contract. He's a good-ass quarterback. And if he can just be steady, that's what Cleveland's never had. Cleveland's always went for the flash. Johnny.
Brandon
Whedon was from Oklahoma State, who was like 28 years old, and he was just phenom, tearing it up at Oklahoma State. They always go for guys who are like, Brady Quinn's another guy. He's the handsome guy, Notre Dame quarterback. Like, they get into all the bull crap. Like, Deshaun is a good quarterback, and to me, I think his best quality is, for the most part, he's able to run the offense and not do outrageous things with, like, turning over the ball. So I think if they have him steady and Nick Chubb, how he's a freak. Nick Chubb might be the best running back in the league, bro. He might just be the best running back in the league.
He's the best pure runner, man, and
he is so good.
Every year. He does it every year.
Forward and getting forward.
Every year.
He's so good. And I hate that I never draft him in fantasy because I just always think that injury is coming, but somebody's benefiting for him drafting him, man. Yeah, he's just a monster. But yeah, those are some of our kind of overreactions. But now we're getting into our betting portion of the podcast, and want to give a quick shout out to Zoo. He told you guys to bet on the Browns. Speaking of the Browns, he told y'all money line.
The easy one.
He told you
it'll be that easy.
I
know it'll be a little more competitive, but Jesus Christ, man, ass whooping, man.
Really
they covered. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, they definitely covered. So we're gonna start again this week with Zoo's touchdown anytime bet. And what are you looking at this week?
Oh, you starting with me?
Or Peebles, my bad. I think
you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I'm taking an 0 for 1 on that. Christian McCaffrey, he did score last week. Beautiful touchdown run by him.
Oh, unreal.
Thought Derrick Henry would get it done, but man, that Saints defense was no joke. And then AJ Dillon, that was just kind of a value pick that you got to just throw in there. He got 2 goal line carries. He just couldn't punch it in. It is really hard to punch it in sometimes, if you're just being thrown in for that one play. I think he could have some value in some down the weeks, especially with Aaron Jones potentially having a lingering hamstring injury. But This week, I'm going to go with the same 3-leg touchdown parlay. I'm going to be keeping McCaffrey in there. They're playing the Rams. I got Sam Laporta, the tight end on the Lions against the Steelers. Against the Seahawks, excuse me. And then Bijan Robinson against the Packers, man.
Oh,
And, these three, McCaffrey, it's McCaffrey, man. If you look at the 2 games he played the Rams last year, one of them was actually with the Panthers. And then, so he actually could have played them 3 times last year, but the Niners had already played them once before they traded for him. And it's actually funny. He had 300 plus scrimmage yards in those 2 games, respectively. Didn't score with the Panthers, but you best damn believe that he scored with the 49ers, man. So I think that's a relatively easy pick. Seahawks kind of struggled actually a little bit against the Rams, but I think that was just more so of underestimation with the Cooper Kupp being out, that they just kind of dug themselves in a hole there.
Sleepwalking.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
They found a new guy.
Yeah,
Who is
man.
that?
We're gonna butcher it, Zoo. Don't even try, man.
Yeah, that brother looks like Cooper Kupp light, man.
Oh, and
the
then
way they
Tutu.
utilize him, he got 10 plus targets.
Him and Tutu Atwell combined for like
Tutu had over
240
100.
receiving yards.
Yeah.
They both had 119 yards on like 18
Crazy.
catches between the 2 of them. So hey, man, who needs Cooper Kupp?
Yeah,
But
Not pick up that brother.
obviously, I'm gonna go with the next most obvious one. That's Bijan against the Packers. I'm just looking at his usage rate, man, and I'm also looking a little bit, Zoo, to how Roshan Johnson and the Bears opened the Packers up a little bit out of the backfield in the passing game. So I think that's big to see for an even higher receiving back potential there in Bijan Robinson. Tyler Algier did steal 2 touchdowns away from him, Zoo. I'm sure you weren't too happy about that.
Man.
But Bijan still going to get it done. I have him scoring. And finally, the Sam Laporta pick. He was a guy that, along with the Dalton Kincaid, I think a lot of people were interested to see what their usage rate was going to be. Man, he was like the second most targeted guy on the Detroit Lions. High usage. And the biggest thing, Goff trusts him. You can tell he actually trusts him. He's throwing to him in some tight windows against the Chiefs last Thursday. So he's the value play. Now, granted, and I did tell this to Sean, we unfortunately don't know the odds as of documentation, but we will be putting that parlay together so you guys can see what the odds are. But yeah, man, I just love these 3 legs because honestly, for every 3 that you place, all you got to do is hit 1 and you still profit. So you could go through 2 weeks without winning, and then you hit the week on the 3rd. You're making all your money back plus a little profit. So it's a little bit longer of odds than what Zoo's throwing out here.
Interesting. I do like Sam Laporta, man. The usage against
a lot of targets
against the KC, he was the second guy, obviously behind the Sun God.
Of course,
the Sun God is. I love the Sun God, man. Shouts to him. Shouts to him. I'm one of my fantasy teams, but for me, man, I had a good look again. But I'm gonna have to bet on the Kansas City Chiefs over the Jaguars -3 on the road. On the road, man.
Okay.
One huge caveat. My boy Kelsey has to be playing. That's the huge caveat.
Okay.
I need
That's
that.
a major caveat.
I need that boy playing because Kadarius Toney got me fuming that Thursday night, man.
Should be bagging groceries.
Fuming, man. Jesus. Because those are some dimes that Mahomes threw. Those were some dimes. Yeah. And I got to shout out, what's it called? Who's the second receiver? Oh, what's his name?
Rice? She Rice?
No, Moore. Spencer Moore.
Sky Moore.
Sky Moore.
I
call it Spencer Moore. Sky Moore, man. Looking like Spencer Moore out there dropping passes, man. Jesus Christ, he was wide open too. Like, Jesus Christ, Mahomes just needed a guy that had 2 hands that could catch a football.
They need to play Justin Ross. That's what they need to do. I don't know why he's not
pretty
playing.
good. And MVS was catching balls too.
Yeah, MVS did his catches. Like, he's 2 balls, gets 50-plus yards. Like, does his thing. So, like Mahomes, like, I see that KC offense, like, yep, they're the same team again. And you get only -3 against a team that they don't lose game ones. That's the thing. Patrick Mahomes, that's his first game 1 loss. And you think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to start out 0-2? Man, please. They ain't starting out 0-2, man, in the NFL, as long as Patrick Mahomes' hamstrings stay healthy, man. That's all I got to say. So Patrick Mahomes whack Travis Kelce against this Jaguars team that is struggled a little against the Indianapolis Colts. Through 3 quarters, it was a 50-50 ball game, and obviously Anthony Richardson threw the pick, and then Mr. ETN was able to get a touchdown in and got the game a little open. But it was a 50-50 game in 3 quarters against a team that I would say is a bottom-tier team this year, obviously the rookie quarterback. So play against Kansas City, which is an elite team. Okay, you're have some real competition now. Like Trevor Lawrence, if you throw a pick now, you're gonna get punished against this team because
Patrick's gonna go down.
You put Patrick in a zone where he close to that midfield line. Oh, that's gonna be barbecue chicken, man. Was a Harrison Butker kicking field goals or Patty Mahomes passing your boy Travis Kelce in the read zone, baby? Because they're gonna be getting it done, man. They're gonna be getting it done, man. So I'm telling you, only -3 for the Chiefs after a loss that if Kadarius Toney had 2 working hands, they would have won that game. Dude, they're gonna beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like right now, the spread is -3, man. I might even go an alternative spread, man, because I'm that confident that they're gonna be getting it done. Maybe 5 points, man.
I don't know how you get alternative.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. The Jaguars and the Chiefs are in different tiers of teams, and even though the Jaguars are at home,
when Kelce is playing.
Man. Yeah, Kelce. Obviously, Kelce. Yeah. That's a huge caveat.
Big caveat.
That's a big caveat. But I'm pretty sure, based on the reports, it looks like he's on pace to play.
Yeah, he probably will.
But you also, why I just thought of this when I was looking back to the game that they played on that Thursday night, the Chiefs defense played really good without Chris Jones. Signed.
Yep.
Good point.
Because if you look back,
yeah,
like Lions had a pick 6.
Yep.
And I think they had a David Montgomery touchdown, but a lot of their drives wasn't
nothing.
Like people were trying to explain it like they were going up and down the field on KFC or not KFC, KC. You can see where my mind's at. But they were talking about like he was going up and down the field. I was like, I think KC's defense played really, really well. And that was without Chris Jones, who I don't know, he may be on a pitch count because he's probably a little maybe not in game shape, but I still think his impact and just their overall defense just being more of a unit that you can't get them confused with getting a bunch of sacks, but they disrupt opposing quarterbacks. And I think, with Trevor Lawrence, you get that. And this is not a Trevor Lawrence thing. It's with any quarterback. But with him especially, like he's kind of got a little bit of Josh Allen in him. The pocket gets a little muddied up. He might risk it and just throw it down there. So I'm with you on the Chiefs, the -3. I do think it's them probably being a little disrespected just because of how they played on Thursday night. But I don't think they played that bad considering the circumstances of what was going on.
They looked fine. They were without their second and third most valuable players, and they were playing against a really good offensive team, and they held their own. Like I say, if Kadarius had some hands, like they would have won the game on a field goal. So,
exactly.
In my mind, they won that game, but wide receivers couldn't pretty much ball out. So blame it on those guys.
It's pretty interesting though, like just how you see how the league, and this has nothing to do with like the bet itself, but it is interesting with KC. Like you would think they would have like a stud college receiver, like a number 1 guy, like just because of how like some of the best quarterbacks in the league, they all have like co-1 receivers. And I know Travis Kelce is such a good pass catching tight end, but it's like imagine if they had like
DeAndre Hopkins
or him. Like if I don't know,
guys, come on, they had Tyreek Hill for years, man. They benefited from having the top 2 wide receiver in the league.
So but I feel like they should still reload.
Yeah.
They need to
reload. They don't have the draft capital for it. They've traded so much away. They just don't have it. They'd have to.
No, their picks are replenished, man. They got it for about the Tyreek trade.
Yeah, no, now they do. But it's not like the Dolphins are going to be bottom of the league.
Imagine if they had
the Bears trading or the Cardinals trading with the Texans. The Cardinals could easily have the top 2 picks this year. They could go Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. back to back.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Oof. So, yeah. It's hard to find that WR1, man. The Vikings got lucky that the Eagles picked Jalen Reagor ahead of Justin Jefferson. Right? And he fell to what, like 21st or something like that? To get that caliber of wide receiver at the 21st pick is ridiculous. Right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just got to get a little lucky, man.
I'm going to give you guys a name. I follow Florida State. There's a guy who, Keon Coleman, just go after the pod, go watch a couple of his. The thing I think that separates him and Harrison is the speed, but he's one of those former basketball guys, man. Like he had actually, I think his basketball stat line in a game in Louisiana, he had like a quadruple double, and it was like a sick quadruple. It was the sickest line I've ever seen for like a high school guy. But he's just bouncy
Bears,
athlete.
they're going to have the Panthers pick at number 4, man. The Bears are going to have the 12th pick, man. So Keon Cole's going to be there at the 12th overall, and the Bears better snatch him, man. I
They
saw
gotta
his
do
highlights
something.
a little bit actually 2 days ago. So
He's
nice.
he surprised me because he was a Michigan State guy. But I mean, it
Mm.
shouldn't be surprising because he was the best receiver at Michigan State, number one, and he was in the 8-man rotation in Tom Izzo's like Michigan State basketball team. So to me, if
Not
you're a
bad.
top 8 rotation guy, that means you're probably somewhat athletic. So
Yeah, just a little.
but yeah, yeah, just a little. But those are our bets this week, and for the pod, we're gonna keep cranking out these bets, and we're gonna keep holding people accountable. Like I said, Zoo, he smashed that bet that he had last week, so hopefully he'll try to see if he can go 2-0, and Peebles can bounce back and get to a 1-1 record. But
Yes, sir.
as always, make sure you guys watch us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Quantrell knows, TikTok Bullheaded864. We're putting all type of content up there. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.